One of the added benefits of out gathering pecans in the fall is thinking about stratifying a few. And if you remember last fall in Oklahoma gardening, we did just that. We gathered some pecans from some of our favorite trees, and then we packed them in moist peat moss and just put them in the refrigerator for about 4 months. Well, last week, about 7 days ago, I took those out of the refrigerator, left them in this sack in moist peat moss just on the kitchen shelf, and I want to show you how quickly, once their stratification needs have been met, how quickly they start to root out. These pecans, if I planted them in the ground, would probably be sprouting up leaves in just another week or 10 days or so, but look how long that root has grown since then. We want to emphasize again, with starting acorns or pecans or other woody plants that grow in the temperate zone, starting those from seed, you want to make sure that you satisfy that winter dormancy requirement, and then they will just pop out in the spring. So if you in a few weeks find some pecans coming up around your yard, this is what they look like below ground right about now. And again, this is something you can plan to do next fall to get nice pecan trees the following year. Well, this is the time of year that we want to be looking at some of our newly planted fruit trees and see how they're doing. We have a peach tree that we planted a couple of months ago, and it's a good idea to take a look at those trees. Even though they're not old enough to be on a regular spray schedule and you're not expecting fruit, you certainly want to make sure that they grow well for you. The main key points with growing fruit trees their first year is to make sure that there's no competition around them. Now, we have our soil around where our fruit trees are planted in pretty good shape. It's in good condition. There's a lot of organic matter, and we have a mulch around here. It's a mix of hardwood mulches and pine straw, whatever we could find to help suppress grassy growth. Now, there's a little bit of henbit coming up, but that's easy enough to pick out. But the main thing is during the growing season, this peach lives, you don't want any weed competition under it. Likewise, you want to make sure you water it plenty during the year to get lots of good growth. And last of all, make sure that you snip off or yank out any suckers that are coming up from below the graft. We have 2 right here, and the key is to go along and just press with your finger and snap those out so that they will come free from the tree and not regrow. If you just clip those off with pruners, they'll just be stimulated and grow back again. So you want to make sure you pull those out completely. Now, if you're looking at your peach trees and they don't seem to be growing real well for you, you can kind of gauge the growth they need by this rule of thumb. Most peach trees need to grow 10 to 18 inches per year. And what we mean by that is that this new shoot coming out needs to come up 10 to 18 inches to indicate that it's growing at its fullest capacity. You don't want it to grow any faster than that, however, because it will be very weak wooded. Now, if it's apple trees, you might want to hold it to a little less growth. The main thing to keep in mind is just take a look at it. If it looks like it needs feeding and is not growing quite as fast as you want, then you may want to fertilize it. Now, what I'm putting on today is just a blend. This is a triple 13 fertilizer, or 13-13-13, and roughly you put on 1 pound of fertilizer per year of tree age. This is a 1-year-old tree, or rather it's its first year in the orchard, so we're just going to put 1 pound down. But because this is a fairly light sandy soil right here in the orchard, I'm only going to apply half of that now. And you might have seen that described sometimes in recommendations for fruit trees and for vegetables, that you put down a split application. And all we mean by that is put half of it down now and wait until maybe June or July to put down the second half amount. You want to keep it away from the trunk of the tree. Don't let the fertilizer be in direct contact with it. And spread it out to what roughly will end up being the drip line of the tree. This may look like quite a lot of fertilizer right now, but fruit trees require quite a bit depending on the soil that you have, especially if you have a fairly sandy soil, which is the ideal environment for peach trees. You need to make sure that they get plenty of nitrogen their first year. And then just water that in real well, and again, make sure that the trees do not lack for nutrients or water, and make sure they don't have weed competition the first year so that they get off to a good start.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge. both classic and contemporary.